Hey guys, Duper S.P here, and it's been some time since I've done a review on this channel, approximately 2 years according to YouTube at least, and I know I essentially said the same thing last time I did a review, but I want to let you know that I plan to try and stay consistent with my production of reviews, as I would say I've been playing a variety of games since the initial review 2 years ago, and would like to spread my opinion on the games in the most straightforward way I can think of. Besides all of that, rather recently, and by recently I mean like half a year ago or so, I have been attempting to try and get into the Kingdom Hearts series as a whole, so I purchased the Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 collection, and coincidentally, the first game on the list after collected games is Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix. Kingdom Hearts, specifically Kingdom Hearts 1, was the first game of a currently 16-year-old series which hosts a universe of a fusion of both Final Fantasy characters and Disney characters of all things. However, the game also adds in more characters in which neither franchise originally held, which the story will focus on particularly. Speaking of story, I think this series is infamously known for its rather occasionally hard to understand plot, which not only spans from this game alone, but from the series as a whole. Nonetheless, I'll try and present the base story, at least, in an understandable manner. The story begins with a trio of friends trying to leave their island by a raft so they can explore what they believe to be other worlds. The main character of the trio being Sora, who we later find out is a special snowflake, but we'll get to that soon. His two friends are the redhead Kairi and the whitehead Riku. From the offset, we have a special general feel for the characters, which essentially boils down to Sora and Riku being in constant competition for who is the alpha and who is the beta males in their group, whilst Kairi is oblivious to all of this. During the preparation of the raft, however, Sora appears to find a mysterious door within a secret location on the island, which he remembers in a flashback with Kairi. Some freaky vibes come from this area, but ultimately, he chooses to ignore these teenage urges and proceeds with his current objectives. The group completes the raft but return home for the day to rest. Later on, however, the islands appear to be attacked by a dark power, which appears to generate dark creatures. Sora investigates this disturbance and witnesses Riku disappearing right before Sora claims a mysterious weapon as his own. After a brief look into the secret location, Sora also witnesses Kairi disappear into nothing, and then he briefly battles a greater black creature to then get transported out of his own world and into another. To quickly summarize, Sora meets a batch of Final Fantasy and Disney characters and learns that his new weapon is the Keyblade and that he must accompany Donald and Goofy across the universe to look for Riku, Kairi, and King Mickey. The story may seem like a lot to take in such a short amount of time, but don't worry, you'll have literal hours to take this in as the game goes at its own pace to unravel the story to the player. From this base story alone, I would say everything takes a big turn early on, which I wouldn't say is strange in storytelling, but actually thinking of what happens is just crazy for me. We have some random teens who just want to stupidly sail out just for the sake of adventure. One then goes out to get sucked away in a fucking black hole after watching his friends literally disappear, and then to top it all off, our hero then goes to traverse the universe as a dog knight and a duck mage. As I said, it is weird, but it will appear comprehensible when fed in the right way. Despite its peculiar qualities, I think the story complements the game as a whole really well, as it allows a vast amount of Disney stories to cross over in what I would say is a very creative and unique way. Because of this crossover with many Disney stories, the cast of the characters are very differing, which allows the game to take any tone it needs when it needs it. This is the main protagonist throughout the majority of the story. I would say they bring a good balance of character, if that makes sense. Goofy is, well, goofy, or if I were to not use puns, I would say he's cheery and doesn't seem like the brightest guy. Some could say his counterpart is Donald, in the sense that he's rather aggressive at times and mostly likes to think straight. Sora though, he needs to find his friends, which he doesn't even know are alive or not, but nah, it's cool. He got the time to participate in Coliseum tournaments, run around with monkey men, and fucking spend time with Winnie the Pooh of all people. In all seriousness though, Sora still has his goals, but isn't really opposed to detours. The new trio overall though, have the mutual quality of loyalty however, not just to their original friends, but to each other as well, which I think becomes more apparent as the story goes on. Judging the story as a whole, I think it's very consistent in the way how it presents itself, but this consistency may also turn into repetitiveness, and this is because when the gang goes to one world, clears their shit up and leaves, they'll most certainly do the same shit again in another. Yes, the in-between bits are maybe different, but the overall result always stays the same, and with how little time each world character gets, it's rather hard to get attached to them. I mean, maybe you watch their shows or movies and you've grown attached to them from that. Or maybe you're like me, meaning you sat down and watched SpongeBob and iCarly all day, instead of viewing anything Disney had to offer. Despite that though, I still feel like there isn't much time given to have major feelings for the characters of individual worlds due to their short plot exposure. The affairs of an intercepting plot occasionally interfere with the main plot, so the format of the story is not always predictable. To finish up on the story though, it's creative but doesn't always keep me entertained. The gameplay in Kingdom Hearts is rather quick and easy to understand. Press one button to attack, another to jump, and a little later down the line, the player will have the ability to guard and dodge with Sora. The player has the option of locking onto a target, but they don't necessarily need to do this however, as the game will make Sora hit the closest enemy if nothing is locked onto. The game also makes Sora jump if he's locked onto an aerial enemy of some kind, which I think is a nice way of taking unnecessary hassle off the player. Alongside the Keyblade, Sora has magic on his side. The magic system is also very straightforward to understand too. The player gets basic spells such as Fire, Blizzard, and Thunder very early on, which perform quick actions such as shooting fire, shooting guys, and etc. The spells are obtained gradually through the story, and occasionally existing spells like Fire for example will get an upgrade and turn into something like Fire. The new form however just gets simple buffs and essentially is just a better Fire with a different name. The magic system unsurprisingly runs on a meter, which must be managed. Different spells consume different quantities of the bar, and different items replenish the same bar. Outside of Sora's combat, there's his support, Donald and Goofy, and occasionally other characters from different Disney stories, although these characters only can help in their own worlds for story reasons, and they have to replace either Donald or Goofy, or neither if you don't want them. Now back to the support's combat. It essentially is automated, meaning they attack what needs to be attacked on site. Donald primarily uses magic, but I think he's also capable of using physical attacks, but as you may assume, these are very weak and are most likely used as a last resort. Goofy on the other hand is very physical and uses his MP to do physical attacks oddly enough. He's a lot more defensive than Sora and has a lot more health, but I think this is made obvious by the fact that Goofy uses a shield in opposed to Sora's blade key. Items are very straightforward in the sense that there's some that heal, some give you MP, and if you're lucky, they'll do both. They get dropped by enemies but can also be purchased from the stores with money. Items can be assigned to a hotbar on Sora, alongside spells he may quickly want to use. However, the items have to be equipped first outside of combat, whilst all spells can always be accessed. Items can also be equipped to your supports too, but I don't fucking bother as dipshits like Donald, who can't manage his MP quickly spam their magic, then use either healing items when they get their ass beat, or bring their MP back and repeat. You might as well still put something on them, as they are still useful, albeit for a short amount of time. The overworld is rather simple to understand. There's not much alternative routes, but there can occasionally be optional areas the player can choose to visit. However, this is not always clear that these are optional, so keep that in mind. Within the worlds there are designated save stations, which I would say are well placed, as they are mostly placed in the safest part of the world, like at the start for example. The worlds aren't too big in the first place, so this isn't really easy to fuck up. In some cases, light platforming may be present, but this will almost never be difficult, as I think it's clear that it wasn't intended to be the main focus of the gameplay. The enemies are mostly heartless with a few exceptions, and the thing with heartless is that they are capable of taking on many different designs, and depending on these designs, the enemies can attack harder, maneuver differently, and even attack differently. The heartless change completely depending on the world, which I think makes the combat less predictable in most cases, but some of the lesser heartless will most likely be present in multiple worlds. Bosses come in different shapes and sizes, and can also have a majorly different boss stage, which potentially affects the way in which the boss is fought. And as usual, the boss has a shit ton of health, because why not? The bosses can also be known Disney villains, with some aspects borrowed from the series, which I would say is very creative in a design sense. Some villains just get heartless support, like some kind of Megazord. However, the fighting style most likely relates to the villain heavily. The gameplay as a whole seems very cohesive and easy to pick up, as there's not much important aspects to learn from the very start. The game's combat is more about learning enemy attack patterns and also learning how to manage against a horde of enemies which may approach you, especially in enclosed areas. I would say that the gameplay is fine how it is, but can be very boring and tedious to go through, as the enemies respawn when you return to an area. So because of this, I find myself just skipping through areas very often, as there's no real immediate need to kill every enemy, unless the game demands it. Despite the tediousness of facing enemies, it's still beneficial defeating them, as they grant you EXP and items, but this is to be expected however from an RPG. I think that's pretty much it for the gameplay. Well, there is a side game involving the Gummy Ship, the vessel in which Sora uses to navigate between worlds, but let's not talk about it. In terms of presentation, I don't have much to say. The characters have size 15 trainers, but that's not the focus. The characters exclusive to Kingdom Hearts have rather differing designs, which sets them apart slightly from the Final Fantasy and Disney characters. However, they still fit in amongst the rest of the cast. Redesigns are given to some characters like Goofy and Donald, but only in terms of clothing. I like their new designs, but I can't really say what exactly I like. It's most likely just Goofy's jacket, to be honest with you. The presentation in terms of the worlds, I would say, are very well done, as they are well spaced out, as said in the gameplay section, but are also simultaneously well built in terms of the placing of the iconic parts of the world. Speaking of worlds, I'm pretty sure the characters from the multiple Disney stories have their original, or at least the most well-known voice actors, which is to be expected. This, I feel, brings nostalgia to the series and helps bring an early reconnection to those who've already seen the series. The music is rather versatile in what it can achieve. By this I mean it can trigger different emotional responses from those listening. With this being said, after a while of playing, I started to find myself hearing the same tracks more times than I would actually like to. Because of this, the soundtrack got a bit predictable and boring at times, occasionally annoying too. I find that Kingdom Hearts for many is seen as a gem from their childhood, which still holds up today, and to an extent, I can see why this is so, as the game definitely brings back a sense of nostalgia for me, and I barely watched Disney as a child. Alongside this, the game constantly brings in fresh material in the story, which sort of tries to keep the game exciting. The game looks good for the time, and the art style complements the many sub-stories in the game. These are some of the good things of the game, but the game unfortunately just becomes way too predictable and repetitive the more you play it, which begins to outweigh my last point. Alongside this and the glaring support problem, there's not much else to have issues with. I'll give this game a 6.5 out of 10. The game is functional and decently balanced, but I like to believe that games mostly need factors which prevent their game from being repetitive, and I would say Kingdom Hearts is slightly lacking this factor and thus becomes a drag to play at times. Thank you for watching my review. I originally had like some scripts planned out for this, but then I just kind of thought to myself, I don't really want the fucking outro to be sounding like it's some scripted shit. Like, I've already scripted quite a lot of this. But yeah, I've been working very hard on this, so just the fact that you made it to this part is actually kind of amazing for me. I know it's kind of generic what I'm saying, but I actually kind of mean it. I understand how these people feel now. But yeah, thank you for checking out my review. I hopefully will make another one by next week, whatever time. And hopefully it's going to be a shorter game, which I don't have to explain the whole fucking story to. But yeah, this has been Duper S.P. signing off. Thank you once again.